Welcome back. As humans, we regard ourselves as highly evolved rational beings. We regard ourselves as being at the apex of the animal kingdom due to our ability to think and to resolve complex problems, including making sense of our environment and the universe. We have generated languages, we can work out mathematical questions, study the universe, and trace the origins of life. We can imagine and we can create. Yet, at a personal level, we suffer stresses of personal conflicts, general unhappiness, and conflicts with others. The question is, why are we not able to work ourselves out of problems? An expert in the field of thinking, specifically creative thinking, is the author of Creativity Uncovered and Am I Clever or Am I Stupid, and numerous other books. He's also an internationally recognized teacher of the subject, Dr. Kobus Neethling, an old friend, and he joins me to discuss the power of imagination and the creative ways of thinking that can help us solve problems at home and achieve goals in different areas of our lives. Dr. Neethling, Kobus, pleasure to catch up with you.
Thank you, Tim. Good to be here.
Sure. And before I talk about books, creative thinking, because I know once we start talking about that, we can go on and we get going. But how did you become interested in this subject of creative thinking?
You know, I first studied at Cape Town University, and I think it started in my family.
Yeah.
My mother, looking back, probably represented the left brain of the family. She was neat, she was organized, always on time, loving person. My father was the opposite. He was a brilliant sportsman, but he was unorthodox. Let me give you an example. At dinner at night when we sat around the table, my father would suddenly get up and he would do 3 somersaults and he would sit down again.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, well, absolutely. He would do a handstand on the chair. He would do funny things, throw the eggs to one another and so on. But looking back, that, in a sense, it was for me to understand that you need both. You need the order and you need the organization, but you need to be, sometimes unorganized. You need to be out of routine and so on. And that, in a sense, was the stimulus for me. So I started to study the human being, and I started to study children, because the only way to understand human beingness, I believe, is to kind of go back to where it all started, from about 0 to 3. So for 7 years, I studied those children in 15 countries. Even in Alaska, I observed the Eskimos and so on. What I found was this, that 98% of all children from 0 to 3 have creativity at a superior level. And you can do that, the evaluation in many ways. But at the age of 10, when we assess them again, not 98% anymore, it's only 32%. So what happens from 3 to 10? And I believe it's because of parenting, because parents try to be good parents, but they don't understand this creativity of the child. So they box them in, they make the rules around the child. And the same with education. First, when you get a coloring book, the first thing you're told, color inside the lines.
Yeah.
So it's inside everything.
Yes.
And so by 10, the creativity drops, and 25, in the world today, only 2% of adults still have creativity at a superior level. That's where we are at the moment.
Okay, and now, did you study specific subjects to become an expert in the field? And we call it creative thinking now, but somebody would say, how do you isolate creative thinking? Did you study specific things?
Yeah. What I did initially,
I'm
sorry, it was education and psychology combined.
Yeah.
And then after my doctorate, I went to the US, and at those years in the 80s, the #1 university in the world in creativity innovation was the University of Georgia, just sort of an hour outside Atlanta, and that's where I went. I was very, very blessed, because I met up with a man who was called the father of modern creativity. He's a giant, Professor Paul Torrance. And he came into my life, and I started actually to study from scratch again. Did another master's and did a post-PhD on the identification and development of creative behavior.
Yeah.
And I look back on my life as a life before creativity came into my life, and a life after that. And that changed everything for me.
Okay, now the nature of the human mind, because we are made up of different personalities.
Yeah.
You've just explained a little bit what happens to our minds when we grow, but what is the nature of the human mind anyway?
I don't think anyone can actually answer that accurately. There's no one way of answering this. For me, and my research, and I've developed the whole brain instruments, the 8-dimensional instruments, for me is that what the nature of the human mind is that one develops certain, let's call it, favorite parts of the mind. So you develop a certain dominance, and there's nothing wrong with that. In all the instruments that I've developed, the score is 300. So some people, for them, the nature is to be rational, to be a clinical kind of thinker. You want information before you take the next step. For others, that must be planned and organized. So in the left brain, you've got these 4 dimensions. On the right side, people who depend on intuition, you know, for them it's more the gut feel. They don't like all these details. They see the big picture, or they connect with people. It's a people orientation. So I believe that you develop the dominance, and that's fine. You select your careers built on your dominances, but you're always in a world of people. And to me, the most successful people in a relationship kind of thing is where you can move in and out of your preferred mode. And that, you know, you can just imagine a parent. If I'm a parent and I've got 2 children, and one has the same dominance as I have and the other is totally the opposite, you will always have a conflict with the other one, because you would never go into the mind of the other child. But the moment you understand how to do that, like with my 2 sons, everything changed when they were 9 or 10 years old. And I developed one for primary school children. And I explained to them, you know, both the same score, no good or bad, but they will like different people, different subjects at school, and so on and so on. From that moment, I eliminated the conflict that would follow. Adults now, no conflict.
Now, you refer to left brain, right brain.
Yeah.
Those are concepts, right? Yeah. And you mean the brain as an organ.
As a thinking brain, as a thinking organ. Yeah.
So, and this denotes something, to say there's a right brain or a left brain. What does that mean?
Yeah, the point of the party is that we're talking about the thinking brain.
Okay.
And there, as I mentioned, there are, you know, I developed models, 8-dimensional models, with 4 dimensions on the left and 4 dimensions on the right side.
Sure.
And as I said, that over time, you start to like to work according to certain of these dimensions. So for instance, let's take the top left dimensions. Would be more, as I say, a preference for clinical thinking, for analytical thinking, to dig deeper into something. So if I want to select a career, there are so many careers that are linked to the L1 brain. If I want to become a surgeon, just imagine what a surgeon does. A surgeon has to focus, has to be clinical, no mistakes, and so on. So that kind of brain would be the preferred mode. A dentist, for instance, and so I can carry on. If I'm going to be in a more organized kind of world where I'm planning, or I'm an organizer, most jobs somewhere have the organizing or plan mode, then I'll go to the L2. See, that's where the planning and the organized side of your brain functions, the thinking brain. That's where it's situated.
You know, what I want to do in this conversation is to establish a few things, and we'll take this thinking process and place it in specific areas of life. Why do we feel stuck most of the time? I mean, I know individuals who are. That's one question. Let me allow you to respond to this one. I've got a follow-up question.
When I said that in the adults, only 2% still have creativity at a sort of that superior level, it's because of this. We're stuck because we get into a routine. We stay there, it makes us feel comfortable, we feel secure in a routine. The moment you break the routine, things change around you, and you're unsure about that, so you prefer to be kind of stuck. That's where creativity comes in. That creative mind which allows you to probe the edges, to see beyond, which makes it easier to leave the routines. The important issue is what I learned right at the beginning, is that creativity can be taught and it can be learned. It's phenomenal to understand that. That we train and we teach people to understand creativity. It doesn't matter if they're 80 years old or 8 years old. That's not the point here. So that they can, because the question is, what do we mean by creativity? It's the development of certain skills and attitudes. Skills, for instance, fluency would be the ability to just generate more ideas than you've had. So hundreds of ideas. You see, otherwise you keep on reinventing yesterday. You don't understand, why am I not improving? Why am I stuck where I am? You know, stress and all those things.
Yes.
Because you just don't have the creativity to move out of it. So we train and teach people to have better ideas, more ideas, original ideas, because that makes it easier for you to leave this anchoring of routine work and yesterday's kind of thinking.
Now, we also cause conflicts for ourselves, within ourselves. We cannot make up our minds one way or another. And we go one step further. We cause conflicts with others. And then in the process of this confusion, we start thinking of ourselves as being less valuable we start comparing ourselves to other people, and then that generates unhappiness.
Absolutely. Now, this is exactly, one of the reasons I started to develop all these instruments is that if I'm in a certain dominant mode and I'm in a relationship with someone else in another mode, what happens over time is the other person becomes wrong in my eyes. That's the kind of thing. And it's got nothing to do with wrong and right. The moment you begin to understand that I may be a clinical kind of person, but my partner is more empathy, more sort of soft kind of gentle person, and I can go into that mode I don't become that, but I can go into that mode. I develop the skills, and with ease I move into that mode. And in that sense, we have seen in business, in corporations, once it becomes a whole brain organization, even working with your clients to pick up the clue who walks into your bank, for instance, to pick up the clue, I'm now working with a person that is not a detailed person. That is more than R1 person. I get a big picture immediately. Immediately that person has respect for you. So moving in and out of these is critical for better relationships. It's critical for team building. And I mentioned parenting. If you're a parent and you can't go into your child's brain and understand and start whatever, you will always have conflict with children that are opposite to your dominance.
Mm-hmm. And that's what leads to conflicts. And I suppose the same would apply in the case of leadership of nations, for instance. The orientation of a people can also be analyzed and explained in the same way.
Vital question. Just imagine, leadership in every country, in our country, must understand that there's an even spread of people out there. Of these 8 dimensions, there's an even spread. So if I don't understand that and I keep communicating and reaching out from 1 or 2 of these dimensions, I'm going to miss the rest of the people. And they will be unhappy because you're not talking to them. It's like a teacher teaching from one dominance and not understanding that the class is whole brain in the class. We have found, and we've worked all over the world, more than 50 countries where we work, we have found if teachers teach only from their dominance, they are missing 70% of the children. So the teaching dominance of the teacher never reaches the learning dominance of the child. And that is what's happening in our schools. The moment they teach whole brain, dramatic changes. We've seen it 20% to 80%, immediate changes. And it's with communication with all your people in your country, just imagine, what you can build, relationship you can build in this.
Well, let's see. And we're going to try an exercise in a moment and say, what about South Africa? What should we be doing at the moment? And of course, creative thinking applies to various areas of life. It could be your relationship with your family. It could be for learning purposes, decision making. You name it. We will be covering it in a short while when we continue the conversation with Dr. Kobus Neethling. You also participate in our conversation. The hashtag is the Modise Network. Don't go away.